The thermal scope painted the world in shades of death. 12 heat signatures moved through the blizzard, advancing in tactical formation across the snow-covered meadow. White silhouettes against black night growing larger with each measured step. Ilara Vance lay motionless in her primary hide position, 700 yards from the cabin. The rifle stock pressed cold against her cheek. Her breath came slow and controlled, crystallizing in the frozen air before dissipating into darkness. They thought this was just wilderness. A woman living alone. Easy prey. They didn't know the woman behind this scope had 47 confirmed kills across 3 deployments in the mountains of Afghanistan. Didn't know she'd survived places where better men had died. Didn't know that every inch of this terrain had been mapped, measured, and prepared for exactly this moment. The lead man raised his hand. Military signal. The assault team split into 2 elements, moving to flank the cabin from both sides. Professional, disciplined, dangerous. Ilara's crosshair settled on the portable spotlight one of them carried. The massive halogen beam would blind her night vision, illuminate the cabin, turn this into a slaughter if she let them deploy it. She didn't let them. The Barrett M82 spoke once. The crack echoed off the valley walls like thunder trapped between mountains. The spotlight exploded in a shower of glass and sparks, plunging the meadow back into darkness. Chaos erupted below. Men dove for cover that didn't exist. Training overrode panic, but barely. Their night vision devices flared white from the muzzle flash, leaving them blind in the crucial seconds that followed. Ilara had already moved, 15 yards north to her secondary position, chambered another round, acquired a new target, a second shot, another equipment light shattered. The man holding it dropped his rifle, clutching his hand where flying debris had torn flesh. Now they knew. Now they understood. They weren't hunting anymore. They were being hunted. The screen fades to black. Text appears 72 hours earlier. Helmand Province, Afghanistan, 7 years ago. The Hindu Kush stretched endlessly in every direction, jagged peaks cutting into a sky so clear it hurt to look at. December in the mountains of Afghanistan. 20 below zero. Wind that could strip flesh from bone. Ilara Vance was 21 years old and already tired of killing. She lay in a shallow hide carved into frozen rock, wrapped in a white ghillie suit that made her invisible against the snow. Beside her, Danny Patterson adjusted his spotting scope for the 100th time that night, his breath forming small clouds in the pre-dawn darkness. Range, Ilara whispered. 1,100 yards. Wind 3.2 from the west. Temp dropping. You'll need to account for cold bore shift. Ilara made the adjustments without thought. 7 months in country had turned the calculations into muscle memory. Elevation, windage, temperature, barometric pressure, all the variables that separated a clean kill from a wounded target in a compromised mission. Below them, the compound was waking up. 12 Taliban fighters, 1 high-value target, a warlord named Qadir, who funneled money and weapons to insurgents killing American soldiers. Simple math. Wait for dawn. 1 shot. Exfiltration. Commander Wade Brennan's voice crackled in her earpiece. Echo 3, this is actual. Target should emerge in 15 mics. Hold position. Copy actual. Holding. Danny shifted beside her. This feels wrong, El. How so? Intel said minimal security. I count 12 hostiles. That's not minimal. Maybe they got reinforcements. Or maybe the intel's bad. Ilara had thought the same thing but pushed it down. You didn't question the mission brief. You executed. That's what SEALs did. Trust the chain of command. Complete the objective. Come home alive. Except sometimes the chain of command was built on lies. The sun broke over the eastern ridge, painting the compound in shades of gold and shadow. Ilara controlled her breathing, slowing her heart rate, entering the zone where time stretched and the world narrowed to the precise diameter of her rifle scope. Danny suddenly stiffened. Movement! 2 o'clock high! Ilara didn't shift her aim. Couldn't. Her crosshair was on the compound entrance where Qadir would emerge. Breaking position meant losing the shot. El, we've got... The shot came from above and behind them. A sound she knew intimately. Suppressed. Subsonic. Professional. Danny's head snapped back. No cry, no gasp. He simply stopped existing. The world collapsed into a single moment of crystallized horror. Training screamed at her to move, but shock held her frozen. Danny's blood steamed in the cold air, spreading across the snow in a pattern too red to be real. Contact, contact, sniper in the rocks. Commander Brennan's voice tight with controlled panic. Elara finally moved, rolled left, scrambled behind a boulder. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold her rifle. Another shot. Rock exploded inches from her head, spraying her face with stinging fragments. The Taliban warlord had his own sniper, someone who knew these mountains, someone who'd been waiting. The intel wasn't just bad, it was a setup. For the next 40 minutes, Elara's SEAL team died in pieces. Corporal Martinez stepped on an IED that the satellite imaging had missed. Lieutenant Chen took a round through the throat trying to flank. The Taliban sniper knew every approach, every angle, every piece of cover. They were fighting in a kill box designed specifically for American special operations. Elara finally spotted him, a heat shimmer 700 yards upslope, partially concealed behind a rock formation. Patient, professional, deadly. She made the calculations through tears and rage. Wind, elevation. The target was good using terrain like a master. But Elara was better. The Barrett roared. The massive 50 caliber round crossed 700 yards in less than 2 seconds. Through mountain wind, through thermal inversions, through her own shaking grief, the hostile sniper fell, but it was too late. 3 dead. Mission failed. The exfiltration helicopter screamed and under fire, taking rounds in the fuselage as the survivors climbed aboard. Elara was the last one up. She took one final look at Danny's body still lying in the hide position, where they'd spent the night planning the shot they'd never take. Then she was airborne, watching the mountains fall away, knowing something inside her had broken beyond repair. The debriefing, Kandahar Airfield. The after-action report was clinical, sanitized, bureaucratic language designed to hide the truth. Intelligence failure, insufficient reconnaissance, Taliban force strength underestimated. Commander Brennan sat across from her in the debriefing room, his face carved from stone. You did everything right, Vance. The mission parameters were flawed. 3 men are dead because of flawed parameters. 3 men are dead because a contractor gave us intel designed to fail. Brennan slid a classified folder across the table. Off the record, the man who provided our reconnaissance works for Titan Defense Solutions. Private military contractor. They profit when operations extend, when casualty counts rise, when the war doesn't end. Elara stared at the folder without opening it. And he'll face consequences. Brennan's silence was answer enough. He's being reassigned to private sector work. No charges, no investigation. The Army doesn't want the embarrassment. Something cold and final settled in Elara's chest. Then I'm done. Vance, I'm done, sir. I'll testify if required. But I'm not going back out there to die because some contractor needs to boost quarterly earnings. Brennan leaned back suddenly, looking every one of his 48 years. I understand. Medical discharge with full benefits. PTSD counseling available. You earned it, petty officer. I earned 3 funerals. She walked out of the debriefing room and never looked back. 4 years of drifting. The transition to civilian life was supposed to be smooth. That's what the discharge counselors promised. Skills transfer, VA benefits, support networks. They lied about that too. Elara spent 4 years floating. Security contractor work that paid well, but felt hollow. She stood in lobbies protecting executives who'd never understand what she'd sacrificed. Worked bodyguard details for people whose biggest threat was paparazzi. She competed in shooting competitions. Won most of them. Felt nothing. She tried relationships, met people who asked about her scars, her nightmares, the way she always sat with her back to walls and eyes on exits. The relationships ended when they realized she'd never fully open up, never fully trust, never fully relax. The nightmares came every night, 3 in the morning like clockwork. Danny's head snapping back, Martinez stepping on the IED, Chen's blood spraying across snow. And always the knowledge that men in suits had decided their deaths were acceptable collateral damage for profit margins. She started looking for land, somewhere remote, somewhere she could see anyone coming from miles away, somewhere the only chain of command would be her own. The listing appeared on a Tuesday in October. 820 acres in the Montana Rockies. No roads, No power lines. No neighbors within 12 miles. The property had been on the market for 3 years, price dropping every quarter. Nobody wanted it. Too remote. Too rugged. Too isolated. Elara clicked purchase within an hour. October, the first day. The dirt road up to the property took 40 minutes to navigate even in her four-wheel drive truck. Switchbacks, washouts, places where the road was more suggestion than reality. Perfect. The cabin sat in a clearing at 7,800 feet. Log construction, sagging roof, windows broken, 40 years of weather damage evident in every rotting board. Elara stood in the clearing, turning slowly, reading the terrain, with eyes trained to assess tactical value. The valley below provided natural approach monitoring. The rocky outcropping to the west offered elevated firing positions. The narrow ravine to the east would channel any movement. The open meadow to the south created clear fields of fire. This wasn't just property. This was a defensible position. She was unpacking her truck when she heard hoofbeats. The horse appeared first. A gray mare, well kept moving, with the confidence of an animal that knew this terrain intimately. The rider sat straight in the saddle despite his obvious age, dressed in worn ranch clothes and a battered Stetson. He pulled up 20 yards away, close enough to talk, far enough to respect boundaries. His weathered face studied her with the careful attention of someone reading a tactical situation. 70-something, eyes that had seen combat. The way he sat, his horse spoke of a lifetime in wild country. "You the new owner?" His voice carried the gravel of decades and cigarettes. "I am, Elara Vance. Colonel Silas Brennan." He gestured north. "Own the ranch that borders your property. Thought I'd introduce myself before you mistook me for a trespasser and did something we'd both regret." Elara studied him, the way he held himself, the unconscious military bearing that never fully faded. "You served Korea, Chosin Reservoir, winter of 50 to 51. He pulled a thermos from his saddlebag. "Coffee still hot?" "I'm fine. Wasn't really asking. Get the cups from my other bag." Something in his tone made Elara comply. Not command, not request. Just the certainty of someone accustomed to being obeyed because he'd earned it. They sat on the tailgate of her truck, drinking coffee, watching the sun track across the valley. "You planning to rebuild?" He nodded toward the cabin. "Reinforce. Make it livable. By yourself." "That's the plan." Silas was quiet for a long moment, studying her the way she'd studied him. Reading things that couldn't be hidden. The way she stood. The hypervigilance. The unconscious checking of sightlines. "Navy," he said, not a question. "How'd you know the way you assessed this clearing when you thought I wasn't watching? Elevated positions, fields of fire, approach routes. That's not rancher thinking. That's military. 3 deployments. Afghanistan." He nodded slowly. "Thought so. Got that look. Same one I saw in the mirror for 20 years after Korea." He sipped his coffee. "You're building walls." "Excuse me. Not talking about the cabin. Talking about you. Coming up here to build walls between yourself and the world." His voice was gentle but firm. "Built mine in 54 when I came home. Bought 2,000 acres of nothing and told myself I wanted peace and quiet. And did you find it? Found isolation? That's different." He set down his cup. "Took me 20 years to learn the difference between protecting yourself and imprisoning yourself." Elara's jaw tightened. "I didn't ask for advice." "No, but you're going to get it anyway. Part of being a neighbor up here." He stood, walked back to his horse with the easy gait of a lifelong horseman. "You need help with that fence you're planning, come get me. Ranch is 12 miles north. Follow the creek." "How do you know I'm planning a fence?" Silas smiled, the first genuine expression she'd seen from him. "Because that's what we all do first. Build fences. Try to keep the world out." He swung into the saddle. "Difference is learning what you're really trying to keep in." He rode off before she could respond. Elara finished her coffee alone, annoyed and unsettled in equal measure. November, building the fortress. The work consumed her. Elara spent November transforming the cabin from ruin to fortress. New roof, metal, fireproof, wood stove, efficient, self-sufficient, insulation, triple layer. Winter rated to -40. Reinforced door frame, steel core, deadbolts that could stop a battering ram. She worked 16-hour days driving to town only when absolutely necessary for supplies. The locals at the hardware store stopped trying to make conversation after the third trip. The woman from California who paid cash spoke in monosyllables and had the thousand-yard stare of someone who'd seen things they couldn't unsee. They left her alone, which was exactly what she wanted, except Silas didn't get the message. He appeared on horseback every few days, always with some excuse, checking property lines, looking for stray cattle, making sure she hadn't frozen to death, always bringing coffee. Ilara found herself waiting for the sound of hoofbeats, found herself pulling an extra cup from her gear, found herself talking more than she had in years. "You work fast," Silas observed one afternoon watching her nail down the last of the roof panels. "Learned efficiency in the service." "Seal." She paused mid-hammer swing. "How'd you know?" "The way you move. Economic. Purposeful. Only two groups move like that. Special operations and people who grew up in rough country. You don't have the accent for rough country." Ilara climbed down from the roof. "What gave it away specifically? The way you cleared the cabin before unpacking. The way you positioned your truck for quick exit. The way you check your six every time I approach." He poured coffee from his ever-present thermos. "And the rifle case in your truck bed. Barrett M82. That's not a hunting rifle. It's legal. Didn't say it wasn't. Said it tells a story." They sat in the cold November sun, drinking coffee, saying nothing. "I lost my grandson in Iraq," Silas said eventually. 2006, Fallujah, Force Recon Marine, Lieutenant James Brennan, 24 years old. Ilara looked at him, really looked, saw the grief carved into the weathered features, the permanent shadow behind his eyes. "I'm sorry. Bad intel sent him into an ambush. Command knew the area was compromised. Sent him anyway. Said the mission was critical." Silas's hands tightened around his coffee cup. "He saved 3 Marines before he died. Got a Navy Cross for it. They sent me a folded flag and a medal and a form letter about his sacrifice. That's why you're up here. That's why I stayed up here. Came originally in '54 to escape Korea. Stayed after James died because I couldn't stand looking at people who thought a folded flag made up for a dead grandson." The coffee had gone cold. Neither of them drank. "The system's rotten," Silas continued quietly. "Chain of command built on politics and profit and acceptable losses. That's what killed James. That's probably what scarred you too." Ilara's throat tightened. "My spotter, Danny Patterson, 26 years old, died because a contractor gave us bad intelligence. The contractor faced no consequences. Got relocated to private sector work. Last I heard, he's making $500,000 a year. And Danny's in Arlington, Section 60, Row 34. Silas nodded slowly, understanding passing between them without need for more words. "System failed them both," he said. "But we survivors. We're not failures. That's what you have to remember. The system broke. We didn't." Ilara felt something crack open inside her chest, something she'd kept locked down for 7 years. "I should have seen it," she whispered. "Should have questioned the intel. Should have nothing. You were 21, following orders, trusting the people who were supposed to know better." Silas set down his cup. "Guilt's a luxury, Miss Vance. Danny didn't die because of you. He died because someone chose profit over truth." The sun dipped behind the western ridge. Temperature dropped 10 degrees in as many minutes. "You'll need help with that fence," Silas said, standing. "I'll be back tomorrow morning, 6 sharp. Bring work gloves." He rode off before she could refuse. But the next morning at 6, when she heard hoofbeats approaching, she had coffee ready and work gloves on. December. The perimeter. They worked in companionable silence most days. Silas knew fence building the way Ilara knew rifles. Posts every 8 feet, wire pulled tight enough to sing, corner braces engineered to last 50 years. "Why not fence the whole property?" Silas asked on the 3rd day. "Impossible. 800 acres. We'd be working until spring. So why fence at all? Defensive perimeter. Protect the most likely approaches, 2 game trails from the national forest, the valley approach from the south, Anyone coming from the north has to cross your ranch first. Silas paused mid-dig. You're not building a fence. You're building a defense line. Same thing. Not even close. But he kept digging, asking no more questions. As they worked, Silas taught her things the Navy never had. How to read animal tracks in snow, which trees grew in which soil conditions, where water would pool in spring, how to predict weather by watching the way aspen leaves turned. Mountain craft, wilderness knowledge, the kind of skills that had kept men alive in Korea when radios failed and supply lines broke. Technology's wonderful, Silas said one afternoon, stringing barbed wire. But it fails. Batteries die. Electronics freeze. Satellites lose signal. The land, though land, remembers everything. You learn to read it, you'll never be lost. Ilara found herself absorbing the lessons hungrily. This was different from SEAL training. That had been about dominating terrain. This was about understanding it, working with it, becoming part of it. By mid-December, the fence stood complete. 8 feet of chain link topped with angled barbed wire, motion sensors at quarter-mile intervals, trail cameras on trees positioned to overlap coverage. To anyone watching it looked like paranoia, a woman alone building barriers against imagined threats. To Ilara, it was a perimeter, professional, calculated, necessary. On December 15th, she hung her only decoration, a small wooden star hand-carved. Danny had made it during their second deployment, whittling during the endless hours of watching and waiting that defined sniper operations. She propped it in the east-facing window where it would catch the sunset. Silas saw it the next time he visited, said nothing. But that evening he brought a second decoration, a battered steel star from a long-ago Christmas tarnished with age. James made this in shop class, he said. 1998. He was 13. Thought he was Michelangelo working with angle grinders. They hung both stars in the window. Wood and steel, past and present, 2 warriors remembered by 2 survivors. That night, Ilara slept through until morning for the first time in 7 years. December 20th, the first contact. The motion sensor alert came at 9:47 p.m. Ilara was cleaning her rifle at the kitchen table when her phone buzzed. She pulled up the camera feed on her tablet. 5 figures, moving through the tree line, spread in tactical formation. Not hikers, not hunters, combat spacing, professional movement. Armed. She grabbed her radio. Silas, you reading me? Static, then his voice alert despite the hour. Copy. What's wrong? Got 5 hostiles testing the southeast fence. Military training evident. On my way, 20 minutes. Don't engage. Copy. But she was already moving, not to engage, to observe, to gather intelligence. She killed the cabin lights, pulled on her ghillie suit, grabbed the Barrett and her night vision binoculars, moved to the barn foundation position 200 yards from the fence line. Through night vision, the world turned green and grainy. The 5 men were clearly visible now. Professional gear, quality optics. They tested the fence in 3 locations, probing for weak points. The leader was tall, heavy build, maybe 40. He moved with the certainty of someone who'd done this before, many times. He pulled out a satellite phone, spoke briefly. Ilara couldn't hear the words, but body language told the story. He was reporting back, confirming the route was viable. They thought the fence was to keep out wildlife. They didn't understand it was a defensive installation designed by someone who understood exactly how to monitor and control terrain. After 30 minutes, they withdrew, melted back into the forest like professionals. Ilara stayed in position, watching, waiting. Silas arrived 23 minutes after her initial call. He moved through the darkness with surprising stealth for a man his age, decades of fieldcraft evident in every step. They're gone, Ilara said quietly. You get a good look. Tactical gear, expensive optics, military training. Silas was quiet for a long moment. Pull up the camera footage. Back in the cabin, they reviewed the trail camera images frame by frame. The leader's face became clear in 3 shots. Silas went very still. You know him, Ilara said. Marcus Thorne, gunnery sergeant, Marine Corps scout sniper, served in Iraq with James. Your grandson, same unit, same deployment. He was there when James died. Silas's jaw tightened. Thorne saw the whole thing. saw how command sent them into a known kill zone, saw how the after-action report was sanitized, saw how the officers responsible got promoted while his brothers got flag-draped coffins. What happened to him? Medical discharge, PTSD, anger management issues. Last I heard, he'd disappeared into the mountains. Rumor was he'd gone into poaching, using his skills for profit instead of patriotism. Ilara studied the frozen image on screen. He's scouting. This was reconnaissance. They'll be back with vehicles and equipment. Most likely, we should call the sheriff and tell him what that 5 men walked near your property. They didn't cross the fence, didn't threaten you, didn't commit any crime. So we wait. Silas looked at her. Really looked, seeing something he recognized. We prepare, he said, but we don't initiate. We're not the aggressors here. We're defenders. There's a difference. Is there? They're planning to come back. We both know it. Difference is in who shoots first, who chooses violence. He paused, then added quietly, Marcus sent me a letter after James's funeral. Said he couldn't attend because he'd been hospitalized. PTSD breakdown. Told me he was leaving the service. Leaving everything. And I never responded. Was too buried in my own grief to help someone else drowning? Silas's voice cracked slightly. Maybe if I'd reached out, pulled him back from the edge, he wouldn't have become this. You can't save everyone, Colonel. No, but I could have tried. He straightened, meeting her eyes. Which is why I'm trying with you. Why I won't let you become what he became. Marcus Thorne was a good Marine who the system broke. You're a good SEAL the system tried to break. Difference is you've got someone standing with you this time. Ilara felt the weight of that responsibility, of being someone's second chance at redemption, at proving the system didn't have to win. Then we'd better not let him down, she said quietly. No, Silas agreed. We'd better not. He stood to leave. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll set up additional monitoring, better coverage. But we do this smart. We do this right. After he left, Ilara sat in the darkness, watching the wooden and steel stars in the window catch starlight. She'd come here for peace, for isolation, for escape from the violence that had defined too much of her life. But violence, she was learning, didn't care about your intentions. Sometimes it found you anyway. Sometimes you had to choose between running and standing your ground. She cleaned the Barrett one more time, loaded a fresh magazine, set it beside her bed within arm's reach. Then she sat in her chair watching the valley, waiting for dawn. Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall. Soft, silent, covering the boot prints the scouts had left behind, erasing evidence, promising nothing. December 25th, Christmas morning, Ilara woke at 5 a.m. to a world transformed. 8 inches of fresh snow covered everything. The valley was pristine, untouched, beautiful in the way only wilderness can be when humans haven't yet marred it with their presence. She made coffee, strong and black, watched the sun rise over the eastern ridge, painting the snow in shades of pink and gold. For 30 perfect minutes, the world was peaceful. Then she saw the gate. The elk carcass hung from the fence like an obscene ornament. Gutted. Organs removed with surgical precision. Head severed. Blood staining the snow beneath it, still steaming slightly in the freezing air. Not random poaching. This was a message. Your fence means nothing. Your property rights mean nothing. These mountains belong to us. Ilara stood motionless, coffee forgotten in her hand. 7 years of training. 7 years of learning restraint. 7 years of trying to be something other than a weapon. All of it evaporated in the face of this calculated insult. She set down the coffee very carefully, walked to the cabin, retrieved bolt cutters from her toolbox. The elk was heavy, probably 400 pounds before gutting. She cut it down, dragged it into the forest, buried it in a shallow grave. The work took 2 hours, physical labor that did nothing to diminish her rage. When she finished, covered in blood and snow, she found Silas sitting on her porch, 2 cups of coffee steaming beside him. Saw it from the ridge, he said quietly. Came as soon as I could. Ilara sat, took the offered coffee, said nothing. They're testing you, Silas continued, seeing if you'll run, if you'll call law enforcement, if you'll escalate. And what should I do? That's not my call. This is your land, your perimeter, your decision. What would you do? Silas was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of decades. When I came home from Korea, I was angry, furious at command for throwing us into Chosin without winter gear, mad at politicians who sent us to fight and then abandoned us. Rage was eating me alive. What changed? My wife, Nora. She told me anger was a choice, said I could spend my life being mad at what happened or I could choose to protect what mattered, build something instead of destroying myself. So you chose peace. I chose purpose. Peace came later. He set down his cup. You're at that crossroads right now, Miss Vance. You can let this turn you into what the system tried to make you. A weapon, a killer, someone who solves problems with violence. Or, or you remember you're a guardian. Guardians protect. They don't initiate. They don't escalate. But they also don't back down. Ilara stared at the blood on her hands. They killed that elk just to make a point. They did. And it tells us everything we need to know. They're organized, profitable, confident. They've been operating in these mountains long enough to believe they're untouchable. So we make them touchable. We make them think twice. Silas stood. Come on, we've got work to do. They spent Christmas Day converting Ilara's cabin into what it had always been designed to be, a forward operating base, the fortress complete. By nightfall on December 25th, the transformation was complete. Ammunition cached in waterproof containers at each firing position. 300 rounds of 50 caliber, 600 rounds of 7.62, enough to sustain a prolonged engagement. Range cards updated with precise distances to every landmark. The dead tree at 340 yards, the boulder at 520, the fence corner at 680. Communication plan established. Silas's ranch radio frequency programmed as backup. Sheriff's Department dispatch on speed dial. Emergency beacon armed and ready. Food and water positioned in the cabin. Medical supplies, cold weather gear. Everything needed to survive a siege. Ilara stood in the center of her cabin looking at what she'd built. Not a home, a bunker, a defensive position, a place designed for violence. You okay? Silas asked. I don't know. I came here to escape this, to be something other than a soldier. You are something other than a soldier. He gestured at the wooden star in the window. Soldiers follow orders. You're choosing to stand your ground. That's different. Is it? Soldiers fight for command structure, for mission parameters, for orders from above. Silas pointed at the valley beyond the window. You're fighting for that, for the right to exist peacefully, for the elk to graze without being butchered for profit, for the land to be protected instead of exploited. That's not soldiering. That's guardianship. Ilara felt something shift inside her, a subtle realignment of purpose. If they come back, when they come back, Silas corrected. Men like Thorn. They don't walk away. You embarrass them by building this fence. Challenge them by not running. They'll come back to prove they're still in control. And when they do, you show them they're wrong, but you do it your way, not with unnecessary violence, with precision, with control, with the skills you've spent your whole life developing. He walked to the door, paused. James used to say something before every operation. Force without discipline is just chaos. Discipline without purpose is just slavery. But purpose with discipline, that's what separates warriors from soldiers. Your grandson was wise. He was 24, still learning, but he understood the basics. Silas looked back at her. You understand them too. You've just been running from them. After he left, Ilara sat in her chair by the window. The Barrett rested against the wall within arm's reach. Condition 3, magazine inserted, chamber empty, safety on. She could bring it to condition 1 in under 2 seconds. Outside, more snow fell. Temperature dropped to 15 below. The valley was silent except for wind through the pines. Ilara sipped cold coffee and watched the stars catch light in the window. Wood and steel. Danny and James. 2 men who died because the system failed them. She wouldn't let their deaths be meaningless. Wouldn't let the cycle continue. Tomorrow was December 26th. The poachers would likely scout again, learn her patterns, plan their assault, but this time she'd be ready. Not as a soldier following orders, as a guardian defending what mattered. The difference she was learning was everything. Dawn came cold and clear. Ilara had been awake for 3 hours monitoring the perimeter through thermal optics. Nothing moved except wildlife. A fox hunting along the fence line. Elk bedded down in the valley. An owl returning to roost after a night's hunt. Normal, peaceful, deceptive. She was brewing her second pot of coffee when she heard vehicles approaching. Two of them by the sound. Heavy engines grinding up the access road. The Barrett was in her hands before conscious thought caught up. She moved to the window, staying back in shadow, using the angle to observe without being seen. Sheriff's Department. A patrol cruiser and a truck, both white with gold lettering. They pulled up to the cabin and stopped engines, idling exhaust steaming in the frozen air. Ilara set the rifle down but kept it close. Opened the door. Two men climbed out. The first was young, maybe 29, with the uncertain posture of someone still learning his authority. Deputy's insignia on his jacket. The second was older, heavy-set with sergeant stripes and the weathered look of a man who'd seen things. The sergeant approached first. "Miss Vance, I'm Sergeant Clayton Hayes, County Sheriff's Department. This is Deputy Travis Whitlock. We received reports of gunfire in this area last night. Multiple shots." Ilara kept her expression neutral. "I didn't hear any gunfire." "No." The deputy spoke for the first time, his tone edged with skepticism. "We had 3 separate calls from town. Said it sounded like heavy rifle fire coming from this direction. I was asleep by 9 p.m. If someone was shooting, it wasn't me." Sergeant Hayes studied her with the careful attention of someone reading a story written in body language. The way she stood, the hypervigilance, the unconscious checking of sight lines even during a conversation. "Mind if we look around? You have a warrant. Don't need one if you give permission." "Then no, you can't look around." Deputy Whitlock's hand drifted toward his sidearm. Not threatening, just ready. "Ma'am, we're trying to be respectful here. But if you're hiding something, I'm exercising my constitutional rights, Deputy. Last I checked, that wasn't suspicious." Sergeant Hayes raised a hand, stopping his partner from escalating. "Travis, stand down." He turned back to Ilara. "Miss Vance, I'm going to be straight with you. You bought a remote property, paid cash, built what looks like a military-grade fence with surveillance equipment, and now we've got reports of heavy weapons fire. From my perspective, that creates questions. From my perspective, I'm a landowner defending my property rights. Against what Ilara considered lying, considered evasion, then decided on truth. I had trespassers on my land last night, armed trespassers. 5 men testing my fence line around 9:47 p.m. They didn't cross the boundary, but their intent was clear. And you responded how? I observed, documented, did not engage. But someone fired shots. Not me, Sergeant. It was technically true. The shots the townspeople heard hadn't been hers. They'd been from Thorne's reconnaissance team, likely testing their weapons before approaching her property. But she wasn't about to volunteer that information without knowing more about where Hayes's loyalties lay. The sergeant was quiet for a long moment. "You served, didn't you? Navy, 8 years. Combat deployments, 3 Afghanistan." Understanding flickered across Hayes's face. "I was Army, MP, 2 tours in Iraq. Got out in '09. He glanced at his deputy, then back to Ilara. "Travis, wait in the truck." "Sarge, in the truck, now!" The younger deputy left, throwing Ilara a suspicious look over his shoulder. When they were alone, Hayes's entire demeanor shifted. Less cop, more veteran. "I know what you're doing here," he said quietly. "Seen it before. Combat vet buys remote property, builds perimeter. Can't sleep without clear sight lines and an escape route. You're not the first soldier to come to these mountains looking for peace." Ilara said nothing. "But I need you to understand something. We've got a poaching problem in this county. Has been for 6 years. Organized operation, military-trained leadership. They take elk, bear, mountain lion, sell organs and meat on black markets overseas. We're talking $3 million annual revenue. And you can't stop them. We've tried multiple investigations. FBI task force has been building a RICO case for 18 months. But these people are smart. They don't leave evidence. Witnesses recant. The one time we got close to the leadership, our key informant disappeared. You think I'm involved with them? No, I think you're in their way. Hayes stepped closer, voice dropping. The leader's name is Marcus Thorne, former Marine, scout sniper. He runs the operation like a military campaign. Territory, resources, rules of engagement. Anyone who challenges him gets a warning, a dead animal, property damage, intimidation. And if the warning doesn't work, Hayes's silence was answer enough. How many people have disappeared? Ilar asked. 3 that we can prove. Hunter who confronted them about illegal kills. Forest Service ranger who got too close to one of their processing sites. Local rancher who tried to establish a wildlife sanctuary. He met her eyes. All 3 were experienced outdoorsmen. All 3 knew these mountains. All 3 vanished without a trace. You're telling me I should be scared. I'm telling you that you just put yourself in Thorne's crosshairs. That fence, that surveillance. To him, it's a challenge, a threat to his operation. Good, Hayes blinked. Good. I didn't come here to back down, Sergeant. I came here to be left alone. If Thorne can't respect that, then we have a problem. Miss Vance, with all due respect, you're one person. Thorne has 24 contractors on his payroll, ex-military, well-armed, ruthless. Then he should have plenty of manpower to go around my property instead of through it. The sergeant studied her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. You know what, I believe you actually mean that. He pulled out a business card, handed it to her. That's my direct line. Not dispatch. Not the station. Me personally. If things escalate, when they escalate, you call that number. And you'll would send deputies. I'll send help. Might not be deputies. Might be state police. Might be FBI if we can get them mobilized fast enough. But I'll send someone. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. There's a colonel lives about 12 miles north of here. Silas Brennan. You met him yet? We've talked. Good. He's a good man. Knows these mountains better than anyone. If things get bad, he's someone you want on your side. After they left, Alara stood on her porch watching the dust settle from their departure. She pulled out her phone, reviewed the photos from last night's reconnaissance. Then she dialed a number she hadn't called in 4 years. It rang 3 times before a woman's voice answered. Professional, clipped. Special Agent Vanessa Harlow. This is Alara Vance, former Navy SEAL. I have information on the Thorne poaching operation. A pause, the sound of papers shuffling. How did you get this number? Sergeant Clayton Hayes, County Sheriff's Department. He said FBI has been building a case. We have. What kind of information are you offering? Photographic evidence of 5 armed individuals conducting reconnaissance on my property, timestamps, tactical formations, equipment details, and probable identification of Marcus Thorne as the operation leader. Another pause, longer this time. Where are you located? Ilara gave her coordinates. I can be there in 3 hours. Don't do anything until I arrive. Don't engage. Don't confront. Just sit tight. Understood. But as she hung up, Ilara knew sitting tight wasn't an option. Thorne had made his move. Christmas Day with the elk carcass. Now it was her turn to respond. Preparation. Ilara spent the next 2 hours preparing, not for FBI arrival, for what would come after. She walked her entire perimeter, documenting everything with fresh eyes. Boot prints in the snow where the reconnaissance team had tested the fence. Crushed vegetation where they had established observation points. Cigarette butts carelessly discarded. Professional in execution. Arrogant in assumption. They thought she was prey. Thought a woman alone would fold under pressure. They had no idea who they were challenging. Back at the cabin, she reviewed her defensive positions. 3 primary locations. Western Ridge for long-range engagement. Barn Foundation for mid-range. Tree line for close-quarters fallback. Each position had ammunition, cached range cards, prepared escape routes plan. She wasn't preparing for a firefight. She was preparing to dominate the tactical situation so completely that a firefight wouldn't be necessary. Silas arrived at 1100 hours. He didn't knock, just walked in carrying a duffel bag. Brought you something, he said, dropping the bag on her table. Inside was a radio, military grade, encrypted frequency, Korean War era, but meticulously maintained. Backup communications, Silas explained. Cell towers go down in heavy weather, phones die. This, he patted the radio, ran for 3 weeks straight at Chosin when everything else failed. You think we'll need 3 weeks? I think we need to be prepared for anything. He pulled out a topographic map, spread it across the table. I've been watching Thorne's operation for 2 years. They have 3 primary routes through these mountains. Here, here, and here. He marked the map with a pencil. All 3 routes converge near Alara's property. Your land sits at a choke point. They've been using this valley for transport, moving kills from harvest sites to their processing location. Your fence just blocked their most efficient route, so they'll come back. They have to, either scare you off or remove the obstacle permanently. Silas looked up from the map. Question is, how do you want to handle it? FBI's on the way, Agent Harlow. She'll want me to cooperate with their investigation. And will you? Ilara was quiet for a moment. Depends on what cooperation means. If it means sitting back while they build a case that takes another 18 months, no. If it means providing intelligence while maintaining my defensive position. Maybe. Spoken like a true operator, Silas smiled grimly. But understand something. Once FBI gets involved, this stops being your operation. Becomes theirs. They'll want control, want you to follow their rules, their timeline. I don't follow orders anymore, Colonel. Not after Afghanistan. Good, because their rules got my grandson killed, got your spotter killed. The system doesn't protect people like us. We have to protect ourselves. A vehicle approached. Black SUV, government plates, FBI. Agent Harlow stepped out, late 30s, athletic build, eyes that assessed everything in seconds. She saw Silas through the window and her expression hardened. Who's that? She asked when Ilara opened the door. My neighbor, Colonel Silas Brennan. This is a federal investigation. Civilians need to leave. Silas stood slowly. Ma'am, with respect, I was running operations when you were in elementary school. I'm staying. Harlow's jaw tightened. Fine, but anything discussed here is confidential. No sharing with local law enforcement, media, or anyone else. She spread files across the table. Photos of Thorne, organizational charts, financial records showing millions in illegal revenue. We've been tracking this operation for 2 years, Harlow said. Thorne's network spans 6 states. They're not just poaching, they're trafficking endangered species, parts sold to international buyers, China, Vietnam, Middle East. And you haven't shut them down because, Ilara asked. Because shutting down the foot soldiers doesn't matter. We need the entire network, the buyers, the transporters, the money handlers. We're building a RICO case that will take down the whole operation. How long? 6 months, maybe 8. And in the meantime, they keep operating. In the meantime, we gather evidence. Harlow pulled out a small device. This is a wire. We want you to wear it. Make contact with Thorne's people. Get them talking. We record everything, build our case, move in when we're ready. Ilara stared at the device. You want me to be bait. We want you to be an intelligence asset. Same thing. Silas leaned forward. Agent Harlow, let me ask you something. When you say move in when we're ready, what does that look like? Coordinated raids, multiple locations, federal marshals, ATM, state police. And if Thorne's people resist, then we respond appropriately. Meaning what acceptable casualties, collateral damage. Silas's voice went cold. That's what command said in Fallujah when they sent my grandson into an ambush. Acceptable losses. He was 24. That acceptable to you? Harlow's expression didn't change. I understand your concerns, Colonel, but this is how federal investigations work. We don't play cowboy. We build cases. We follow procedure. Your procedure leaves women like Miss Vance exposed for months while you dot I's and cross T's. Your alternative is what she guns down Thorne's crew and faces murder charges. My alternative, Ilara said quietly, is I defend my property using appropriate force. I don't initiate violence. I don't hunt them. But if they come onto my land with hostile intent, I respond. That's not how this works. That's exactly how this works, Agent. I'm a landowner. Montana law allows me to defend my property. Deadly force is authorized against armed intruders who pose imminent threat. Harlow stood. Miss Vance, I'm ordering you to stand down. This is a federal investigation. You interfere, you'll face obstruction charges. You can order all you want, I don't work for you. The standoff lasted 10 seconds. Then Harlow grabbed her files, headed for the door. When Thorne's people come for you, don't call me for help. Wasn't planning to. After she left, Silas let out a long breath. Well, you just made an enemy. She wants me to sit back and be a victim while she plays politics. I'm done being what the system wants me to be. Good. Silas walked to the window. Because I did some checking, Harlow's not just building a case, she's building a career. This will be the bus that gets her promoted. She doesn't care about these mountains or the wildlife or you. She cares about headlines. How do you know? Because I've seen her type before. Officers who send men into danger for medals and promotions. My grandson died for an officer's career advancement. I won't let you be someone's stepping stone. Ilara felt something solidify inside her. A decision made. So we do this ourselves. We defend, Silas corrected. We don't hunt. We don't initiate. But we make it damn clear that this property is protected. And when Thorne comes, you show him what a real sniper can do. December 29th, the sniper's duel. The next 3 days passed in tense quiet. Ilara monitored her perimeter constantly. Motion sensors remained silent. Trail cameras showed only wildlife. Too quiet. Too calm. Silas stayed at his ranch but checked in twice daily via radio. They'd established communication protocols, code words for different threat levels, prearranged responses if either of them went silent. On December 29th at 2:15 a.m., the silence broke. Ilara was half asleep in her chair, the rifle across her lap, when a single motion sensor pinged. Southeast quadrant. Single heat signature. Moving slowly. She came fully awake in an instant. Checked the thermal monitor. One person. Advanced counter-surveillance techniques. Staying in shadow. Using terrain to mask approach. Not reconnaissance. This was infiltration. Ilara killed the cabin lights. Moved to the northeast window. Scanned with night vision. Nothing. Whoever it was knew how to stay invisible. Then the window exploded. Glass shattered inward. The shot came from 800 yards out northeast ridge. Suppressed. Subsonic. Professional. Ilara was on the floor before conscious thought registered. Training overriding shock. She low-crawled to her equipment bag, grabbed the radio. Silas, contact single sniper. Northeast ridge, approximately 800 yards. The radio crackled. Copy. Stay down. I'm inbound. Another shot. This one punched through the cabin wall 2 feet above where she'd been sitting. Ilara's mind raced through calculations. The shooter had night vision. Thermal optics. Was tracking her movement inside the cabin. Every window was a death trap. She grabbed the Barrett, crawled to the back door, slipped outside into darkness. The radio crackled again. Not Silas. A different voice. Male. Calm. Professional. Echo 3, I checked your record. 47 confirmed kills across 3 deployments. Impressive. Ilara keyed the mic. Identify yourself. Someone with 51. Let's see who's actually better. Marcus Thorne. This doesn't have to be a fight, Ilara said. Walk away. Find different mountains. Can't do that. These are my mountains. My operation. You're the intruder. I have a deed that says otherwise. And I have 24 armed men who say deeds don't matter. A pause. But I don't need them for you. Just me and you. Sniper versus sniper. Settle this professionally. Ilara was already moving, using the terrain the way Silas had taught her. Low ground. Shadow. Unpredictable pattern. She reached the barn foundation, established a firing position, began scanning for Thorne's location. Another shot. Dirt exploded 5 feet to her left. Close. Too close. He'd tracked her movement, anticipated her position. This wasn't an amateur. This was a trained scout sniper with advanced optics and home field advantage. Ilara shifted again. 30 yards west, behind a boulder, her thermal scope swept the northeast ridge. There, a heat bloom, partially concealed, 820 yards. She made the calculations. Wind 3 miles per hour from the west, temperature 15 below, altitude affecting bullet trajectory. Her crosshair settled on the heat signature. Finger took up slack on the trigger. Then she heard it, the distinctive crack of a different rifle. M24, military precision weapon. Silas. The colonel had positioned himself on the western slope 400 yards from Alara's location. He was firing suppressing shots, forcing Thorne to take cover, breaking his concentration on Alara. "Move!" Silas's voice on the radio. "I've got him pinned for 30 seconds. Reposition now." Alara ran, not away, toward, closing the distance to Thorne's position, cutting the range to 600 yards, 550, 500. Thorne's rifle barked again, but he was shooting at Silas now, trying to eliminate the flanking threat. Then Alara heard something that stopped her cold. A grunt of pain over the radio. Labored breathing. "Silas! Hit, shoulder, not critical." His voice was strained. "Keep moving. Don't stop for me." Rage flooded through Alara. Pure, focused, lethal. Her crosshair found Thorne's position again. He was partially exposed, repositioning to engage Silas. She had the shot. Clean. 870 yards. Difficult but achievable. She could end this right now. Put a .50 caliber round through Thorne's center mass and end the threat permanently. Her finger tightened on the trigger. "Don't." Silas's voice weak but firm. "Don't do it, Alara. That's what he wants. Turn you into a killer. Make you no different than him. He shot you, and I'll heal. You kill him, you won't. Not from guilt, but from what it makes you." Alara's crosshair trembled. The rage warred with discipline, training versus emotion. She thought about Danny, about the hostile sniper in Afghanistan, about the moment she'd taken that revenge shot and felt nothing but emptiness afterward. She thought about Silas's words. Guardians protect. They don't initiate. They don't become what they're fighting against. Slowly, carefully, she lowered her aim. 6 inches, a foot, 2 feet. Then she fired. The round impacted 3 feet from Thorne's position. Dirt and rock exploding upward. A warning shot that said clear as words, "I had you. I could have killed you. I chose not to." Thorne's radio crackled. "You missed." "I didn't miss. I chose mercy. Next time I might choose differently." "There won't be a next time. You just proved you're weak. You had the shot and didn't take it." "I proved I'm not you. I don't need to kill to win." Alara was already moving, providing covering fire while she maneuvered to Silas's position. The colonel was behind a fallen log, one hand pressed against his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. "Grazing wound," he said through gritted teeth. "Went clean through. I'll live." "Can you move?" "Can I move, girl? I'm 71 and got shot. I can barely breathe, but yeah, I can move." Alara helped him up, supported his weight, began the careful extraction back to the cabin. Behind them, Thorne's voice echoed across the valley. "This isn't over, Echo. Not even close." But he didn't pursue, didn't take another shot. He'd made his point, drawn blood, proven he could reach them anywhere. And Alara had made hers. She could have killed him, chose restraint instead. The question was whether that choice had been strength or weakness. She wouldn't know the answer until Thorne came back. Recovery and revelation. Alara treated Silas's wound in the cabin, through and through. Bullet had missed bone and major vessels. Painful but not life-threatening. She cleaned it, packed it, bandaged it properly. Work she'd done 100 times on the battlefield. "You should see a doctor," she said. "Should do a lot of things. Doesn't mean I will." Silas leaned back in the chair, face pale but jaw set. "That was good work out there. Kept your head, didn't let rage dictate tactics." "I almost killed him. Almost doesn't count. You made the right choice." "Did I? He'll come back. With more men, more weapons. Because I showed weakness. You showed discipline. Different thing entirely." Silas winced as he shifted position. Thorne spent 6 years in these mountains believing might makes right, that the strongest survive and the weak get eliminated. You just challenged his entire worldview. By not shooting him, by being better than him. He was a good Marine once, before the system broke him. Deep down, some part of him remembers what honor looks like. You just reminded him. Alara wasn't convinced, but she let it drop, made coffee. sat with Silas through the long hours of darkness, monitoring the perimeter, waiting for a second assault that never came. At dawn, Silas's wife Nora arrived. She took one look at her husband and the blood-stained bandages and went pale. "You old fool," she said, but her hands were gentle as she examined the wound. 71 years old and still playing soldier. Wasn't playing Nora, was protecting. Same thing you've been doing for 50 years. One day it's going to get you killed. Rather die protecting something that matters than waste away doing nothing. Nora looked at Alara. Really looked, seeing not just the sniper, but the woman underneath. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for not leaving him out there, for bringing him home. He came to help me. It's the least I could do." "No. The least you could do is what most people do. Run. Call for help. Let someone else handle the danger." Nora's eyes were fierce. "You stood your ground. That's rare, especially nowadays." Over the next week, a pattern emerged. Alara would spend days working on the property, monitoring, preparing. Silas would visit despite his injury, teaching her more about the mountains. Nora would bring food conversation, gradually filling a maternal space that Alara hadn't realized was empty. They became something unexpected. A family, not by blood, but by shared purpose. Three people who understood what it meant to protect what mattered, regardless of cost. On January 10th, everything changed. Agent Harlow returned, but this time she wasn't alone. 3 SUVs, 6 federal agents, a show of force designed to intimidate. "Miss Vance, we need to talk." They sat in the cabin. Harlow spread new documents across the table. Surveillance photos, financial records, intercepted communications. "We've been monitoring Thorne's network since our last conversation. We've identified his processing facility, his transport routes, his buyers. We're ready to move." "Then move. It's not that simple. We need someone on the inside, someone he'll talk to, someone who can gather the final pieces of evidence we need for prosecution." "You want me to wear a wire?" "We want you to make contact, pretend to negotiate. He respects you after that sniper duel, thinks you're a worthy opponent. We can use that." Silas spoke from the corner where he'd been listening silently. "Let me guess. You want her to meet with him, record the conversation, then you'll swoop in with a tactical team and make arrests." "Essentially, yes. And if something goes wrong, if Thorne suspects, if the wire fails..." Harlow's hesitation told them everything. "She's expendable," Silas said flatly. "Acceptable risk for the mission." "That's not. That's exactly what it is. Same thinking that got my grandson killed. Send someone into danger to achieve your objective. If they die, well, that's the cost of doing business." Harlow stood. "Colonel, I understand you're protective, but this is a federal investigation. We have protocols. Your protocols left Miss Vance exposed for weeks while you built your case. Your protocols didn't stop Thorne from shooting at us. Your protocols don't protect anyone except your career." The words hung in the air like gunsmoke. Harlow turned to Alara. "I need an answer. Will you cooperate or not?" Alara thought about it. About Danny. About the intelligence officer who'd sent them into an ambush. About systems that treated people as assets instead of human beings. "No. No. I won't be bait. Won't be an intelligence asset. Won't participate in an operation where I'm considered expendable." "Then you're obstructing a federal investigation." "Then arrest me." Harlow's jaw tightened. "You think you can handle Thorne yourself? He's got 24 armed contractors. Military trained. Ruthless. You're one person. One person who knows this terrain. Who's prepared. Who won't hesitate when it matters. You kill him, you'll face murder charges." "Only if I kill him. I'm planning to defend my property using appropriate force." "There's a difference." Agent Harlow gathered her files. "When this goes wrong, don't expect help from us." "Wasn't expecting any." After the FBI left, Silas stood at the window watching their vehicles disappear down the mountain road. "You made a powerful enemy today. I made a choice. Same as you taught me. Purpose over orders. Discipline over obedience." "Good." Silas turned, and despite the pain from his wound, he smiled. "Because what Harlow doesn't know is we're not planning to fight Thorne. We're planning to make fighting us so costly that he'll choose to go elsewhere." "How?" "By being so prepared, so disciplined, so precisely dangerous, that he realizes these mountains aren't worth the blood it would cost to take them. Silas pulled out the topographic map again. Now let's plan a defense that would make Sun Tzu weep. They worked through the night. Two veterans, two survivors of broken systems, two people who'd learned that sometimes the only person you could trust was yourself and the person fighting beside you. And somewhere in the darkness, Marcus Thorne was planning too. The mountain had become a chessboard. The pieces were in motion, and the final battle was 12 days away. January 15th, 7 days to battle. The satellite messenger vibrated at 600 hours. Ilara grabbed it before the second buzz read the message displayed in cold blue letters. One last chance. Sell the land or we take it. You have until the 22nd. No signature, no return number. It didn't need either. Marcus Thorne's challenge was clear as a declaration of war. Ilara deleted the message and walked outside into pre-dawn darkness. The thermometer read -18. Her breath crystallized instantly, hanging in the air like frozen ghosts. She'd been awake for 2 hours already, had completed her perimeter check, had verified all sensors were functioning, had test-fired each weapon to ensure cold weather hadn't affected performance. Preparation was meditation. Routine was armor against fear. Silas arrived at 0700 riding, despite his healing shoulder. The wound was 16 days old now, knitting cleanly, but the careful way he dismounted spoke of pain he refused to acknowledge. Resting's for the dead, he said before Ilara could comment. I'm still breathing. He moved stiffly toward the cabin. Besides, we've got work to do. They spread maps across her kitchen table. Topographic charts overlaid with hand-drawn tactical annotations. Red circles marked Thorne's probable approach routes. Blue squares indicated defensive positions. Green triangles showed fallback points. He'll come with numbers, Silas said, tracing a route with his finger. My guess is 20, maybe 25 contractors, not his full crew. Enough to overwhelm one person, not enough to draw federal attention if things go loud. When, not if. When, Silas agreed. And he'll come at night, probably between 03 and 0500, darkest hours, when most people are deepest in sleep. I don't sleep anymore. I know, neither do I. Silas tapped the map. Your primary position here on the western ridge gives you 700 yards of clear fire, but you'll be exposed if they bring counter-sniper assets. They will. Thorne's not stupid. No, he's not, which is why you're not staying in one position. Silas drew new lines on the map. Shoot and move. Classic guerrilla tactics. Take a shot, displace immediately. Force them to chase shadows. Ilara studied the plan. It was sound, professional, the kind of defensive strategy that had sustained insurgencies against superior forces for centuries. And you, she asked, I'll be here. He tapped the barn foundation position. Overwatch, suppressing fire. Make them think there's more of us than there are. Your shoulder. My shoulder will hold for one night. That's all we need. Silas met her eyes. This is my last operation, Ilara. I'm not sitting it out. Something in his tone made her pause. What aren't you telling me? Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded paper. Medical report. The letterhead read Montana Regional Cancer Center. Stage 4, he said simply. Heart and lungs. 6 to 8 months if I'm lucky. 4 if I'm not. Ilara felt the world tilt slightly. When did you find out? November. Week before you moved here. He smiled without humor. Funny how life works. Spent 70 years surviving everything the world threw at me. Korea, ranch accidents, a wife who throws dishes when she's mad. Then some microscopic cells decide they're done with me. Does Nora know? She knows. Doesn't accept it, but she knows. He refolded the report, tucked it away. I tell you this, not for pity. I tell you because this fight with Thorne, it's my last chance to matter. Last chance to stand for something. I'd rather die defending this mountain than waste away in a hospital bed. You're not going to die defending anything. We're going to survive this, and then we're going to make sure you get treatment. Ilara, his voice was gentle but firm. I've made my peace. 71 years is more than most get. And if I go out protecting something that matters, protecting someone who reminds me why I fought in Korea in the first place, that's a good death, an honorable death. She wanted to argue, wanted to rage against the unfairness, wanted to tell him that she'd already lost too many people and couldn't bear to lose another. But she understood. He wasn't asking for her permission. He was asking for her respect. Then we do this right, she said finally. We don't just survive. We win so completely that Thorn never comes back. So this mountain stays protected. So your last operation is your best one. Silas's smile was genuine this time. Now you're talking like a warrior. They spent the next 4 days preparing. Not frantic preparation, methodical, precise. Every detail considered and reconsidered. Ilara walked the property 50 times, memorizing every stone, every tree, every depression in the ground. She timed herself running between positions in full gear, practiced reloads in darkness, dry-fired until the trigger pull was smoother than breathing. Silas reinforced the barn foundation position, creating a proper hide with overhead cover and multiple firing ports. He cached ammunition, medical supplies, and water at strategic locations. He programmed radio frequencies and tested communications range. Together they established signals. 3 quick clicks on the radio meant enemy contact. 2 long clicks meant fall back. 1 steady transmission meant catastrophic emergency. They didn't talk about death, didn't discuss what would happen if one of them fell. Warriors didn't plan for failure. They prepared for every contingency, then executed with absolute commitment. On January 20th, Sheriff Hayes drove up the mountain road, alone this time. No deputy, no official business. Heard some things, he said without preamble. Thorne's been moving people into the area, renting cabins, staging equipment. Something big is coming. When? Ilara asked. My sources say the 22nd, 2 days from now. Your sources reliable. Reliable enough that I've requested state police backup for that night. Won't be here immediately, but I can have a tactical team in the area within 30 minutes of a call. FBI, no, Hayes's expression darkened. Agent Harlow knows. She's ordered everyone to stand down, says she doesn't want local law enforcement interfering with federal operation. What federal operation? She already said she wasn't helping me. That's what I asked. She said, and I quote, sometimes you have to let situations develop before you can resolve them. Hayes shook his head in disgust. Translation. She's waiting for Thorne to make a move so she can swoop in and take credit for the arrests. While I'm what collateral damage? She didn't say that, didn't have to. The sheriff handed Ilara a radio. This is encrypted. State police frequency. You get in trouble, you call. I'll have units rolling before she can interfere. After he left, Silas examined the radio. Good man. Still believes in protecting people instead of careers. There aren't many like him left. No, there aren't. Silas looked out at the valley where afternoon sun painted the snow in shades of gold. That's why what we're doing matters. Not just defending property, defending the idea that some things are worth protecting, that honor still exists, that you can still choose to stand instead of run. January 21st passed in tense silence. Motion sensors detected nothing but wildlife. Trail cameras showed empty forest. The mountain held its breath. That evening, Ilara and Silas shared what might be their last meal together. Nora had brought it, pot roast, potatoes, apple pie, the kind of meal you made for people you loved. You boys be careful out there, she said, kissing Silas goodbye. Then she turned to Ilara, pulled her into a fierce hug. You keep that old fool alive. He's too stubborn to die, but stupidity can overwhelm stubbornness. I'll do my best. Your best is considerable. Nora held her at arm's length. I've lived in these mountains 60 years, seen a lot of people come and go, most running from something. You're the first I've seen running toward something, toward purpose. That matters. After she left, Ilara sat with Silas in the growing darkness. The wooden and steel stars glowed softly in the window. Danny's and James's legacies, side by side. You ever regret it? She asked. Korea, the fighting, the choices you made. Silas thought for a long moment. I regret what war cost me. Friends who died, innocence lost, the nightmares that still wake me 70 years later. He sipped his coffee. But I don't regret standing for something. Chosin Reservoir was hell. -30 temperatures, surrounded by Chinese forces. We should have all died, But we fought our way out because we believed in each other, believed the man next to you was worth dying for. Is that what tomorrow is chosen all over again? No. Chosen was about survival against impossible odds. Tomorrow is about sending a message that these mountains have a guardian, that exploitation has a cost, that some people still choose honor over profit. He stood to leave, paused at the door. Ilara, if something happens to me tomorrow, nothing's going to happen. If something happens, he continued firmly, I need you to know something. When you moved here, I was waiting to die, just counting days until the cancer finished what Korea couldn't. But these last 3 months training you, planning this defense, standing for something again, you gave me back my purpose, gave me a reason to matter one last time. Silas, let me finish. You came here broken, thinking you were done with war, done with fighting. But you're not a warrior because you fight. You're a warrior because you protect. Tomorrow you protect what matters. And if I fall, you keep protecting. Promise me. Ilara's throat tightened. I promise. Good, he smiled. Now get some rest. Tomorrow we make history. But neither of them slept that night. January 22nd, the final battle. The motion sensors erupted at 03:45 hours. Ilara was already in position on the western ridge, had been for 2 hours. She'd watched the valley through thermal optics, counting heat signatures as they materialized from the darkness. 22. Thorne had brought 22 contractors. They moved in 3 elements. Main assault force of 14 approaching from the southeast. Flanking team of 6 from the northeast. 2 snipers establishing overwatch on the eastern ridge. Professional, coordinated, deadly. Ilara keyed her radio. Silas, count 22 hostiles. 3 elements. Pattern Delta. Copy. I have visual on main assault. Standing by. Remember the rules of engagement. Equipment and warning shots only. No kills unless absolutely necessary. Roger that. Guardians protect. They don't execute. The assault force reached the fence line at 0358. They didn't try to climb it. They brought bolt cutters. Within 90 seconds, they'd created a breach wide enough for vehicles. 2 trucks rolled through. Diesel engines, 4-wheel drive, probably carrying additional weapons and equipment. Ilara let them come. Patience was the sniper's greatest weapon. Rush the shot, miss the target. Wait for the perfect moment, change everything. The truck stopped 300 yards from the cabin. Men dismounted, began advancing on foot in tactical formation. That's when Ilara engaged. Her first shot wasn't at personnel. It was at the lead truck's engine block. The Barrett's 50 caliber round punched through metal like paper, devastating the engine. Steam erupted. The vehicle died instantly. Chaos erupted below. Men dove for cover. Someone screamed orders. Return fire erupted, but they were shooting blind. Muzzle flashes in darkness, hoping to suppress a target they couldn't locate. Ilara had already moved, 15 yards north to her secondary position, acquired a new target, the second truck, another shot, another destroyed engine. Now the assault force was on foot with no vehicular support, no quick escape, no heavy weapons transport. The flanking team tried to maneuver. They advanced through the ravine using terrain for cover, attempting to reach the cabin from the undefended northeast. Silas engaged from the barn foundation. His M24 barked 3 times in rapid succession. Not at personnel, at the ground in front of them. Rounds impacting close enough to spray them with frozen earth and rock. The message was clear. We see you. We control this battlefield. Advance at your peril. The flanking team went to ground pinned by precision fire from a shooter they couldn't locate. For 20 minutes, Ilara and Silas dominated the tactical situation. They didn't kill, didn't wound. They destroyed equipment, suppressed movement, controlled tempo and initiative. 4 contractors were hit by flying debris from destroyed equipment. Non-life-threatening injuries, but enough to demoralize. Enough to prove that the shots could have been lethal if the shooters had chosen. Then the situation changed. The 2 sniper teams on the eastern ridge opened up. Not at Ilara or Silas directly. They were laying down covering fire, suppressing the defensive positions, while the assault force maneuvered. Professional counter-sniper tactics. The kind Thorne would have taught them. Ilara couldn't stay in position anymore. Fire was too accurate, too sustained. She grabbed her gear displaced to her tertiary position in the tree line. That's when she heard it, a sound that froze her blood. Silence on Silas's radio. Silas reports status. Nothing. Silas, static. Then finally a weak transmission. Hit. Right side, bad. Ilara's world narrowed to a tunnel. Every instinct screamed at her to break cover, run to him, provide aid. But that's what Thorn was counting on. Draw her out. Make her emotional. Turn this from a tactical engagement into a target of opportunity. She forced herself to think, to breathe, to assess. Below, the assault force was regrouping, using smoke grenades for concealment, moving with renewed purpose toward the cabin. She couldn't stop them all, not from this position, not alone, but she could even the odds. Ilara scanned with her thermal scope, spotted one of the sniper teams on the eastern ridge. 890 yards, elevated position, professional hide. She made the calculations. Wind, temperature, the curve of the earth at this distance. Bullet drop compensated for altitude. She controlled her breathing, slowed her heart rate, became the weapon. The shot was perfect, not at the sniper, at his rifle scope. The 50 caliber round destroyed the optic in a shower of glass and metal. The sniper jerked back hands to his face out of the fight. The second sniper team immediately relocated, understanding they were facing someone with skills that matched or exceeded their own. Below, the assault force had reached the cabin perimeter. 14 men in tactical formation. Too many to stop with warning shots. Time for a different message. Ilara switched to her M4. Lighter, faster, better for rapid engagement. She didn't aim to kill. She aimed to incapacitate. Knees, shoulders, extremities. Shots that dropped men without killing them. 4 contractors went down in the first magazine, screaming, bleeding, out of the fight. The others broke. Training collapsed in the face of overwhelming precision. They scattered toward the tree line, toward the breach in the fence, anywhere that wasn't here. Silas's voice crackled weakly over the radio. Still, in the fight, barn position, holding. Relief flooded through Ilara. He was alive. That's when Marcus Thorne stepped into the open. He walked through the smoke and chaos like a man without fear. Rifle slung, hands visible. No threat posture. Just a warrior acknowledging another warrior. Ilara's crosshair found him. Center mass. 200 yards. Easy shot. She could end it. Right now. 1 round. Eliminate the threat permanently. Her finger touched the trigger. Thorne stopped. Keyed his radio. Echo 3. You win this round. But understand something. I was a good Marine once. Believed in honor, service, sacrifice. The system broke that belief, turned me into this. You chose this path, Ilara responded. The system failed you, but you chose how to respond to that failure. Did I, or did the system make choosing anything else impossible? He gestured at the chaos around them. Wounded contractors, destroyed equipment. I can't go back, can't undo what I've become. But maybe you can be better. Be what I couldn't. Sirens echoed in the distance. Flashing lights visible on the access road. Thorne shouldered his rifle. Tell the old man he taught you well. Korean war tactics adapted for modern warfare. I'm impressed. Tell him yourself. He's still alive. Is he good? He deserves to see what he built. A guardian who actually guards. Thorne began backing toward the tree line. I'm leaving these mountains. My operation here is done, but others will come. There's always someone willing to exploit what should be protected. And there will always be someone standing in the way. Yeah, there will. He paused at the tree line. For what it's worth, Echo, you're better than your record suggests. 47 kills is impressive, but knowing when not to kill, that's mastery. He disappeared into darkness. Ilara didn't pursue, didn't take the shot she still had. She lowered her weapon and ran to the barn foundation. Silas was propped against the stone wall, one hand pressed against his side. Blood seeped between his fingers, but his eyes were clear, alert, alive. Told you I'd hold, he said weakly. Old man's still got fight in him. State police vehicles roared into the clearing, tactical teams deploying, medics scrambling. Sheriff Hayes directing operations with controlled urgency. Aftermath. The medics wanted to life flight Silas to the regional hospital. He refused initially, but Nora arrived, and that was the argument he couldn't win. As they loaded him into the ambulance, he grabbed Ilara's hand. "You did good, Captain. Real good." "Colonel, I was never a captain." "You are now. I just promoted you. And don't argue with a dying man." "You're not dying today." "No, not today." He smiled. "Thanks to you." Agent Harlow arrived 30 minutes later with a convoy of federal vehicles. Took one look at the scene, wounded contractors being treated, equipment, destroyed, no fatalities on either side, and her expression was unreadable. "What happened here?" she demanded. "Defense of private property," Ilara said simply. "Armed trespassers engaged in illegal activity. Appropriate force applied. All within Montana law." Harlow looked at the contractors being loaded into ambulances. "You didn't kill any of them." "Didn't need to. Stopping the threat doesn't require ending lives." "Where's Thorne?" "Gone. Fled before state police arrived." Harlow's jaw tightened. "You let him escape." "I defended my property. Your job is to catch criminals. Mine is to protect what matters." Ilara gestured at the valley where dawn was breaking over the mountains. "He's not my responsibility anymore. He's yours." The FBI agent stared at her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she nodded. "Fair enough. We'll take it from here." The investigation took hours. Statements given, evidence documented, wounded contractors arrested, the tactical scene processed like any law enforcement operation. But Ilara's mind was elsewhere, at the hospital, with Silas. She arrived at 1400 hours. Nora was in the waiting room, face pale but composed. "Surgery went well," she said. "Bullet missed major organs. He'll recover, physically at least." She looked at Ilara with fierce eyes. "The cancer's another matter. Doctor says the stress accelerated it. Maybe weeks instead of months now." Ilara felt something break inside her chest. "I'm sorry, I should have. Should have what? Let those animals take the mountain. Let them win." Nora grabbed her hand. "He chose this. Chose to stand for something. That's who he is. Who he's always been. Don't you dare dishonor that choice with guilt." They let Ilara see him that evening. He looked small in the hospital bed, diminished, but his eyes were fierce as ever. "Told you it was my last operation," he said. "Went out the right way." "You didn't go out. You're still here. For now." He squeezed her hand weakly. "Listen, the sanctuary, the land, it's yours now. Nora and I already updated the will. 40% of the ranch goes to you, 60% to Conservation Trust, on one condition." "What condition?" "You mentor the next ones, the broken soldiers who come to these mountains looking for peace. You teach them what I taught you, that protecting something is how you heal. That purpose matters more than surviving." "Silas, promise me." Ilara's vision blurred. "I promise." "Good," he smiled. "Now get out of here. Mountain needs a guardian. Can't guard it from a hospital." 6 months later, August. The sanctuary was beautiful in summer. Wildflowers carpeting the meadow, elk grazing peacefully, bear cubs playing near the creek while their mother watched with patient vigilance. Ilara walked the fence line at dawn as she did every morning. But now the walk was different. Not surveillance, not security patrol, just appreciation, connection with the land she'd fought to protect. The cabin had been expanded. Small addition for an office where she could coordinate the veteran rehabilitation program. Solar panels on the roof, better insulation. It was becoming a home instead of a fortress, though the rifle still rested beside her bed. Some habits never died. Silas had passed peacefully in late July, Nora beside him, Ilara holding his other hand. His last words were, "The mountain's in good hands." The funeral had been full military honors. Flag-draped coffin, 21-gun salute, Marines in dress blues folding the flag with mechanical precision. Ilara had delivered the eulogy to a crowd of veterans ranchers and people whose lives Silas had touched over 7 decades. "He taught me that strength isn't about killing," she'd said. "It's about knowing when not to. That the strongest warriors are the ones who protect instead of destroy, who choose purpose over survival, who stand for something even when the system tells them to sit down." Now, 6 months after the battle, the Brennan Vance Wildlife Sanctuary was thriving. 8 veterans enrolled in the rehabilitation program. Former soldiers learning wilderness skills, finding peace through purpose, discovering that protecting something could heal wounds that medications couldn't touch. The legal aftermath had been surprisingly simple. Federal prosecutors charged 12 contractors with various crimes. Thorne remained at large, but his network had collapsed. The mountains were quieter, safer. Agent Harlow had gotten her promotion, but she'd also learned something. She visited once a month, coordinating with Alara on wildlife protection, treating her as a partner instead of an asset. Small steps toward a system that remembered people mattered more than the statistics. On August 15th, Alara received official papers. The Brennan Vance Wildlife Sanctuary was now federally protected. Hunting prohibited. Development forbidden. Nearly 3,000 acres of preserved wilderness. Silas's legacy. Their legacy. That evening, she sat on the porch watching the sunset. The wooden and steel stars glowed in the window behind her. Danny's and James's memories preserved in carved wood and hammered metal. She'd added Silas's Marine Corps flag to the display. Faded, worn, carried through Korea, and brought home to a ranch that became a sanctuary. A wolf howled in the distance. Not a threat, a reminder. The mountain had predators, had always had predators. But it also had a guardian now, and guardians didn't abandon their posts. December 24th, 1 year later, snow fell softly as Alara walked through the sanctuary. 1 year since the battle, 1 year since everything changed. The Veteran Rehabilitation Program had grown. 12 participants currently enrolled. Former soldiers finding peace through protecting the land. Learning that strength came from restraint. That purpose healed better than any prescription. At 1900 hours, she heard voices outside. A family camping in the designated area. The Hendersons from Riverside. They'd gotten permits to celebrate Christmas in nature. But their 11-year-old daughter Sophie had wandered off. Got turned around in the woods as darkness fell. Alara found her within 20 minutes. Easy tracking in fresh snow. The girl was cold but unharmed, sitting under a pine tree trying not to cry. "Are you the mountain guardian?" Sophie asked. Alara knelt down, offered her jacket. "I'm Alara. This mountain keeps people like you safe. Come on, let's get you home." She walked Sophie back to her frantic parents, accepted their tearful gratitude, refused their offers of reward. "Just respect the land," she said. "That's payment enough." Back at the cabin, she sat in Silas's old chair, made coffee, watched the stars catch light in the window. Wood, steel, fabric. 3 fallen warriors remembered. For the first time in 9 years, she felt something close to peace. The satellite messenger buzzed at 22:47 hours. Alara's hand moved toward it, old habits triggering. But she paused, looked at the device, the glowing screen, the promise of new conflict. She picked it up. The message was brief. No sender ID, just GPS coordinates and 3 words. Phase 2 begins. She pulled up the coordinates. Northern Ridge, 2 miles outside her property line. The exact position where Thorne's snipers had set up during the January battle. Someone was watching, had been watching. Alara stood, walked to the window, scanned the ridge with binoculars. Nothing visible in the darkness. But that didn't mean nothing was there. Her radio crackled. "Sheriff Hayes on emergency frequency. Vance, we just got a report. Marcus Thorne escaped custody in Canada 3 weeks ago. Last seen heading south toward Montana border. Thought you should know." Alara set down the binoculars, picked up the Barrett, checked the magazine. Condition 3, ready but not desperate. "Thanks for the heads up, Sheriff. You need backup." She looked at the valley, at the sanctuary she'd built, at the veterans sleeping peacefully in the rehabilitation center, at everything worth protecting. "Not yet, but keep a unit on standby." After signing off, she stepped onto the porch, scanned the darkness one more time. The mountains were silent, patient, eternal. Somewhere out there, Thorne was coming back, maybe to finish what he'd started, maybe to prove something to himself. Maybe because some men couldn't let go of territory they'd lost. But this time would be different. This time she wasn't alone. Had 12 trained veterans who owed her their healing. Had Sheriff Hayes and state police on speed dial. Had Nora and the community who'd learned that guardians were worth supporting. And most importantly, she'd learned what Silas had died teaching her. Strength wasn't about fighting, it was about knowing what you'd fight for. Elara walked back inside, hung the rifle beside the door. Not hidden, not forgotten, just ready. The wooden and steel stars glowed softly in the window. Danny, James, Silas. Three warriors who taught her that protection mattered more than revenge. That restraint took more courage than violence. That some things were worth standing for, even when the system told you to sit down. Outside, a wolf howled in the distance. Not a threat, a reminder. The mountain had predators, had always had predators, but it also had a guardian now. Elara sat down, opened her laptop, began typing an email to the veteran network. Subject line, emergency protocols, condition yellow. If Thorne wanted phase 2, she'd give him phase 2. But this time he'd be facing more than one sniper on a mountain. He'd be facing a community that had learned to stand together. The screen glowed in the darkness. Her fingers moved across the keys with practiced efficiency. Outside, snow continued falling, soft, silent, covering the world in white. The mountain waited, and somewhere in that darkness, so did Marcus Thorne. But Elara Vance had stopped running from ghosts, had stopped building walls against the world, had learned that the strongest fortresses were built not from fear, but from purpose. She'd come to these mountains broken, seeking isolation, trying to escape a system that had failed everyone she'd loved. Instead, she'd found a mentor who taught her that warriors could choose protection over destruction. She'd built a sanctuary where broken soldiers learned to heal. She'd defended a mountain without becoming what she fought against. And now, 1 year after the battle that defined her, she understood something Danny and James and Silas had all known. The fight was never about winning. It was about what you were willing to protect, who you chose to be when violence was the easy answer and restraint required courage. The wooden stars glowed softly in the window. The valley slept peacefully below, and the guardian kept watch over both as she would for all the days to come. Because that's what guardians did. They stood, they protected, they endured. Even when the darkness returned, especially when the darkness returned. Elara hit send on the email, closed the laptop, poured herself coffee. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Thorne, the system, whatever came next. But tonight on Christmas Eve, 1 year after she'd learned what she was truly capable of, Elara Vance allowed herself one moment of peace, one breath of gratitude for the warriors who'd shown her the way, one promise to the mountain that had become her home. "I've got the watch," she whispered to the stars in the window. "You can all rest now." Outside, the snow fell heavier, covering tracks, erasing evidence, promising nothing. But inside the cabin, a guardian sat ready, and that made all the difference. The Brennan Vance Wildlife Sanctuary continues operations to this day. 43 veterans have completed the rehabilitation program since its founding. Marcus Thorne's current location remains unknown. The mountain keeps its secrets, and its guardian keeps watch.